BloombergQuint. Now, India's states are in many ways at the front lines of fighting this COVID-19 crisis, both in terms of health infrastructure, but also in terms of providing support to those impacted by the restrictions placed. But do the states have adequate resources? Many of them are reaching out, appealing in some ways, as sending out SOSs for more relief from the center, but also from the central bank. Joining us to talk about some of those aspects is Dr. Thomas Isaac, the finance minister from the state of Kerala. Dr. Isaac, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, sir. My first question to you is an attempt to understand what's happening on the ground, sir. Based on your experience, can you tell us the kind of impact the state's finances have seen, both in terms of a surge in expenditure and in terms of revenue implications, sir?
Well, we seem to be winning the battle against COVID. There have been 387 cases, of which now 218 have been cured. That leaves 167 active cases and only 2 deaths. The kind of the transmission ratio is one of the lowest at 0.4%. And if you look at the recovery rate, it is one of the highest, and death rate one of the lowest. So we have been doing pretty well. But we are losing the battle in the finance. Okay. There has been no revenue at all. We should have received something like 10,000 plus crore rupees in the month of April. I'm expecting something like 2,000 crores. Okay, that leaves a big gap. I have already included whatever money that we are getting from the center. Then this 2,000 crores is mostly the revenue deficit fiscal transfer from the center. So what we have done is we just front-loaded our borrowing. We outright in the first week itself borrowed 6,000 crores rupees, but had to pay dearly 9% rate of interest. Now, when your economy is growing at minus and you are borrowing at 9%, that's a sure recipe for a debt trap. And that's what the state is being pushed to do. Kind of financial disaster, not just Kerala, every state in India. And now the third, I think our biggest challenge in Corona battle is going to come. When lockdown is withdrawn, there is going to be influx of migrant Malayalis from other states and more importantly from Gulf. And of course, even from Europe. And I keep my fingers crossed. How many? Maybe more than 100,000, 200,000. It's anybody's guess. And that is going to be the big challenge. How to quarantine them all and still keep our economy growing. That's the fourth challenge, that we have to open the economy. We cannot have it closed down permanently. Even India government is thinking to relax the thing after April 20th. Well, we have also an exit strategy, but that will be a new normal now, because Corona is going to be here with this many people coming from outside. And therefore, we have to go to a new strategy. And that's what we are thinking about. We will have to quarantine now all our vulnerable sections. All those who are above the age of 60, which in Kerala today around 12-13% are above that age. So there's a large number. And also people with serious medical conditions, all of them.
Right, sir.
They will stay in the house while, better able would go and work. Now these are very complex, big challenges. And that's what the situation is here now.
Dr. Isaac, if I can just ask you a few specific questions, both on the revenue and the expenditure side. So the number that you mentioned, around 2,000 odd crore, this is all central transfers. Would it be fair to assume that for most states, the own tax revenue collections would have come to a near standstill because some of the items, stamp duty, petroleum products, alcohol products, where states tend to get own tax revenue, are all businesses that are near standstill. So your only source of revenue is now either share from the divisible pool of taxes or compensation cess or any other central transfers.
Absolutely right. The revenues of all state governments in India would be nil. Their own tax revenues or non-tax revenues, or very minimal. And share of the central taxes, that would also sharply come down because GST, there's no collection of GST taking place, and maybe some share of the corporate and income taxes and so on. But therefore, tax share, transfer of tax share would also be very minimal. So what remains is other central transfers. In the case of Kerala, we have been fortunate that the 15th Finance Commission has given us a generous revenue deficit grant, unprecedented amount, because our tax share has sharply come down. So we have been compensated, but I pity Karnataka. Central government did not consider favorably the recommendation to compensate them. Anyway, so this is the only source. See, Kerala would, central government would owe Kerala, if you take 4 months GST compensation, December to March, a minimum 4,000 crores rupees. Now this April, there's no GST. I think they would have to give another 1,500 or 2,000 crores. Okay. 6,000 crores, yeah, it's a huge amount of money. This minimum should be done. Anyway, Government of India will have to pay this money to the states. Yes. We are going to discuss in GST Council how to do it. It's very simple, yeah. The Government of India doesn't need to give it from their own revenue. You just permit the council or the fund, the compensation fund, to borrow from the market. And then every state will agree. And we have agreed ahead of it. We have agreed that the compensation cess may be extended for another year till this money which is given now is recouped. Such a simple operation. I don't know why they are not doing this.
Okay, so you intend to bring this up at the next GST Council. The other question, sir, I had was, what about the funds from the disaster relief fund, both the central and the state level? Have all of those been sort of transferred? Are they already in use for the various activities that are being required right now? I know it's not a very large pool, but it is still some money that sits in these disaster relief funds.
Yes, it is determined by in the formula made by the Finance Commission. But what has been now distributed is such a small amount. Kerala gets 250 crores rupees. And what's that after all? How does it match with the expenditures that are involved? See, what are the expenditures of state government? One is the salaries. Now you're telling every a private employer not to cut salaries, and suppose the state government cut the salaries, as many states have done. I think tomorrow even I may not have a choice. When I have money to pay salary, how do I pay? So that is one. Second, okay, other development schemes, etc., can wait. But what about the income transfer to the poor? Central government doesn't have to face that pressure from the below. Kerala, we have decided on an average, every family something like 5,000 rupees is transferred to every family in various ways, like 8,500 rupees as welfare payments to aged and say differently able, all other working members of welfare funds to get something, anything between 1,000 to 3,000. Besides a food kit besides 15 kilos of rice, 1,000 rupee um, food kit of condiments and pulses to every household. You have to do this. You see, I think we who are fortunate to have a salary should sit for a minute and think, meditate. Suppose we are not paid salaries for 2 months, how do we survive? Now here is majority of Indians locked out of their jobs, having no
Yes.
income and savings, and we should generously support them. Otherwise, how do you ensure the compliance? Otherwise, you will have non-stop disruptions like the migrant workers
True.
voting out of the cities on their foot to their villages, destroying the whole very logic of lockdown.
True, sir.
So this is very important.
Oh,
And in the
absolutely.
case of Kerala, we have whole lot of payment arrears for the past 1 year to be paid. So how do we manage this state finances? It's a big question.
Absolutely. Dr. Isaac, you had said that you had front-loaded some of your borrowings in the first 2 weeks of April. I know they came at a very high cost, but I wanted to know, is there any clarity from the central government as to whether the overall limit for state borrowings is being increased? There was a very, poorly worded central circular which came out, which said that total states will be allowed to borrow 3.2 lakh crore in April to December, which seems to be 50% of borrowing. So instead of allowing
Right.
states to front load, you're saying that only 50% can be borrowed all the way till December. But I'm not sure if
That's
that was
what.
the correct interpretation.
Right, right. Say 27,000 is our annual borrowing, and therefore we can borrow something like 13,000 crores of rupees, and that's I think what has been intimated to us. So we just front order 6,000 as the first on the first day, first auction of the financial year, and we unfortunately went for 15-year bond, and result was 8.9% interest rate. Now we are advised don't go for more than 500 or 1,000 crore and go for some states which went for 1.5 years bond. I don't know what is their intention. They're paying back the money after 1.5 years. They got for 7% or little less than 7%. So these are the two questions: the period, the duration of the bond, and also the amount. Now, Reserve Bank informally advised us things are very uncertain, don't immediately go again. So we have, okay, decided to wait for another week or two, but we'll have to go to the market. So this simply shows what? The banks are unwilling to lend. It is on record by a senior banker who said we set the rate at such level that no state will borrow. To our surprise, we found the states borrowing. What else can the state do? Therefore, India government shouldn't push the state to into a phase of bankruptcy. When you are going to have a period of negative income growth, you borrowing at 9% is the surest formula to a debt trap. It is something like the period in the 1970s and early 80s when NSSF borrowings were forced upon the state at 12%, and that's what made the state's finances so bad, near bankruptcy. A similar situation is going to rise. Therefore, Government of India should understand this is a limit of monetary policy. But you have done what can be done with the RBI. The system is not just responding. You have cut the CRR, you have reduced the repo rate, but look at what is the outcome. And therefore, India government should just borrow from the Reserve Bank, monetize its debt. We were doing it till 1990s. Whole world is doing it, Vidya. Even Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, every one of them is using all instruments to provide their governments with printed money. And therefore, that's what India government should do, borrow and make it available to the state. If necessary, you say you have a pandemic bond at 4% or something, which the government of India will purchase. I mean, these are the possibilities. I don't know why we have such a neoliberal ideological blinkers. The world is changing here. It's a time everybody is becoming Keynesian.
That's true. So last couple of questions. Are you using the Ways and Means Advances Facility, which the RBI is offering? I think they've increased the limit there by 30%. There is a committee looking into whether larger support from the WMO window can be given to states. Any suggestions, and are you using that window, which seems like the easiest place to access money, sir, for states?
Yes, they have already taken two actions. One, they have increased the Ways and Means limit by 30%. That has already been done. And they have also increased the overdraft days from 14%, for 14 days to 21 days. So that gives some cushion. And we are already on overdraft. And I don't know how we are going to pay the May salary. I think we'll be stretching to the limit. This is minor tinkering, Ways and Means accommodation. Increase the fiscal deficit ceiling of the state to 5% or minimum to 4%, and pay the GST compensation. And one more, increase the allocation for NHM, double it or triple it, so that money is pumped into the public health system. I think that's what central government has got to do.
Dr. Isaac, one last question. An issue has also cropped up with contributions to the Chief Minister's relief funds. I believe while the contributions to the central fund can be accounted for under CSR, the same has not been provided for state funds. Your peer, Dr. Amit Mitra, has recently written a letter to the government. Do you see, would you be pushing the government to make that change? To the extent that that kind of sort of funding avenue can help?
See, we have been cooperating with the center in every aspect, and there is not a single issue on which we have deviated from what central government guideline or advice in the COVID fight. But look at pinpricks. I don't know what's the overall scheme. One, the purchase of COVID-related material. Now it has go through the central health department. Okay, let central government procure it. If the state government has contacts and procure it, why do you want to prevent it? Because it's not a situation we have surplus of things we just don't have. Internationally, there is so much pressure in the market. Tamil Nadu health minister saying we are going to get this so many masks and so on. Now it has gone to USA. So why do we restrict them? Other and worst case is this. It's not Prime Minister's Distress Relief Fund. Now a new PM cares. The framework of which, the rules of which, I don't know. Nobody seems to know. But anyway, it has come. PM cares. Or they're trying to corner all the CSR funds. While there is a duly established, long-standing tradition, Chief Minister's relief funds, it's the state governments who actually deal with the grass level here. How is the central government going to send money by helicopter to every household in India? So it's a state government which is on the ground, which is the front line, where money is required. And the Chief Minister's Distress Relief Fund doesn't get the CSR funds. It's very unfortunate. This is unfortunate. There are many like this which you don't want to take beyond a point at this national calamity level, but which does not send good signals of what they call, quote unquote, cooperative federalism.
Absolutely. Dr. Thomas Isaac, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much indeed, sir, for your time and for sharing the experience at the state level. As Dr. Isaac has been saying, and as we started by saying as well, states are at the front line of this fight. And if they are facing financing pressure, then, solutions have to be found. Thanks so much for watching BloombergQuint.